Maren Cole had only $6 left in her pocket. Her landlord had already called twice that morning. She was on her way to a job interview, wondering how she would survive another week, when she noticed a black leather wallet lying on the sidewalk outside Whitfield Capital. She picked it up. Inside were stacks of $100 bills, more money than she'd ever held in her hands. For one brief moment, she wondered what her life would look like if she simply walked away. Then she opened the ID Adrian Whitfield, the billionaire CEO whose face appeared on magazine covers across the country.
It's not mine.
Without another thought, she walked straight into Whitfield Capital to return it. The lobby of Whitfield Capital was even more impressive than Maren had imagined. Polished marble floors reflected the morning sunlight, and employees hurried past in tailored suits, barely noticing her. She walked confidently to the reception desk, holding the wallet with both hands. "Good morning," she said politely. "I found this outside your building. It belongs to Mr. Adrian Whitfield." The receptionist blinked in surprise. "You found Mr. Whitfield's wallet?" "Yes. I just want to return it." Within seconds, 2 security officers approached. One of them carefully opened the wallet just enough to confirm the owner's ID. His expression changed immediately. This wallet was reported missing less than 20 minutes ago. He looked back at Maren. "Please come with us." A few minutes later, the elevator doors opened onto the executive floor. Everything was quiet. No ringing phones, no crowded offices, just a long hallway leading to a pair of elegant wooden doors. One of the assistants smiled politely. "Mr. Whitfield is expecting you." Maren stepped inside. Adrian Whitfield stood beside the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. He turned as she entered. For a brief moment, neither of them spoke. She walked forward and placed the wallet gently on his desk. "I believe this belongs to you." Adrian opened it immediately. The cash was untouched. The credit cards were exactly where he had left them. Even the family photograph tucked inside was still there. He looked up at her with genuine surprise. "You didn't take a single dollar." Maren smiled softly. "It never belonged to me." Adrian reached into the wallet, pulled out several $100 bills, and held them toward her. "Please, accept this as my way of saying thank you." She shook her head without hesitation. "I appreciate the offer, but I can't. You returned a wallet most people would have kept. And I slept well last night. I'd like to do the same tonight." For the first time that morning, Adrian laughed. It wasn't a polite business laugh. It was real. He slowly placed the money back into the wallet. "I've met a lot of people," he said, "but I've never met anyone quite like you." Maren smiled. "Maybe you've just been looking in the wrong places." She turned toward the door. Just before she reached it, Adrian spoke again. "Miss Cole." She looked back. "Would you have dinner with me this evening?" She raised an eyebrow. "Is this another reward?" He smiled. "No. It's a thank you. And I'd like the chance to know the woman who reminded me that honesty still exists." Maren thought for a moment before smiling. "All right. But only if you promise not to spend the entire evening talking about business." Adrian's smile grew wider. "It's a promise." As she walked out of the office, Adrian glanced at the wallet once more. For the first time, losing it no longer felt like the most important thing that had happened that day. That evening, Maren arrived 5 minutes early. She smiled to herself as she looked at the elegant restaurant. "So much for somewhere simple," she whispered. A moment later, Adrian stepped out to greet her himself. I was beginning to think you'd changed your mind. I almost did, she admitted with a laugh. Then I remembered you promised not to talk about business. I keep my promises. He held the door open for her, and together they walked inside. Instead of ordering for her, Adrian handed her the menu. Choose whatever you like. Maren studied it for a few seconds before smiling. I'll have the pasta. Just the pasta? Adrian asked. She nodded. I've learned that expensive doesn't always mean better. Adrian smiled. I couldn't agree more. As dinner began, something surprised both of them. The conversation flowed effortlessly. They didn't talk about billion-dollar companies or stock markets. Instead, they talked about childhood memories. Maren shared stories about growing up with her mother, who always believed that a person's character was worth more than their bank account. Adrian admitted that his happiest childhood memories weren't in boardrooms or luxury hotels, but baking cookies with his grandmother every Sunday afternoon. You baked? Maren asked, trying not to laugh. I made a terrible mess. So, you weren't good. Oh, I was awful. They both laughed. For the first time in a long time, Adrian wasn't thinking about meetings, investors, or deadlines. He was simply enjoying the company of someone who expected nothing from him. When dessert arrived, Maren politely declined. I'm already full. Adrian looked surprised. Most people order dessert just because it's included. My mother always said never take more than you need. He smiled quietly. I'm beginning to think your mother was a remarkable woman. She was. There was a brief silence. Not an awkward one, a comfortable one. Adrian finally broke it. So, what do you do when you're not returning wallets? Maren laughed. I work part-time at a neighborhood bakery. A bakery? She nodded proudly. I love baking. The smell of fresh bread in the morning just makes people happy. Adrian smiled. I'd like to see this bakery someday. You'd better come early. Why? Because the cinnamon rolls disappear before 9. He chuckled. Then I'll set my alarm. As Adrian drove her home later that evening, neither of them wanted the conversation to end. When the car stopped outside her apartment building, Maren smiled. Thank you for dinner. Adrian looked at her for a moment before speaking. No. Thank you for saying yes. She smiled warmly before stepping out of the car. As she disappeared through the front entrance, Adrian remained parked for another minute. He realized something that hadn't happened in years. For 2 whole hours, he had completely forgotten about work. Saturday morning arrived earlier than usual for Maren. By 6 o'clock, the little neighborhood bakery was already filled with the warm smell of fresh bread, butter, and cinnamon. She had just placed a tray of cinnamon rolls on the display shelf when the bell above the door chimed. She looked up. Adrian walked in wearing a simple navy sweater and jeans, looking more like an ordinary customer than the billionaire whose face appeared in business magazines. Maren couldn't hide her surprise. You actually came. I did. And you came before 9. You warned me the cinnamon rolls would disappear. She laughed. I see you were listening. I listen when people tell me important things. An elderly customer standing nearby smiled as Adrian patiently waited his turn in line. When he finally reached the counter, Maren folded her arms with a playful smile. So, Mr. Whitfield, what can I get for you? Adrian studied the display for a moment. I'll take 2 cinnamon rolls. He paused thoughtfully. And 2 blueberry muffins. That's all? I was going to order one of everything. She laughed. I knew you were going to say that. And I would have told you they taste much better when they're shared. Adrian smiled. Then I'll have enough to share. As Maren carefully packed the pastries into a paper bag, Adrian noticed how every customer greeted her by name. She remembered the little girl's favorite cookie. She asked an elderly man how his doctor's appointment had gone. She slipped an extra roll into another customer's bag after hearing him say it was his wife's birthday. No one asked her to do those things. She simply did them. When the shop became quiet again, Adrian looked at her with admiration. "You're exactly the same here." Maren looked up. "What do you mean?" "The woman who returned my wallet. The woman standing behind this counter. They're the same person." She smiled softly. "My mother always said kindness isn't something you turn on and off. It's just who you are." Adrian nodded. I think she was right. A few minutes later, they walked outside carrying coffee and warm pastries. Instead of getting into his car, Adrian pointed toward a small park across the street. "Would you mind taking a short walk before you get back to work?" Maren checked the time and smiled. "I've got 15 minutes. That's plenty." They strolled through the quiet park, talking about everything and nothing. There were no awkward silences, no need to impress each other. Just two people enjoying a peaceful morning together. As they returned to the bakery, Maren smiled. "You know, I almost didn't pick up that wallet." Adrian looked at her. "I'm really glad you did." For the rest of the day, neither of them could stop smiling. Without saying it aloud, both of them were quietly hoping this wouldn't be their last Saturday morning together. A week later, Maren finished her shift at the bakery and stepped outside. Adrian was waiting by the sidewalk, holding a small paper bag. "You've been working all day," he said. "I thought you might be hungry." Maren looked inside the bag. It was a sandwich and a bottle of orange juice. She laughed. "That's definitely cheaper than your first dinner." Adrian smiled. "I'm learning." They sat on a nearby bench and shared the simple meal. For the first time, Adrian admitted something he rarely told anyone. "People think having money means life is easy." "Isn't it?" Maren asked gently. He shook his head. "It solves problems. But it doesn't stop you from feeling lonely." Maren was quiet for a moment. Then she smiled. "I don't think anyone should have to eat lunch alone." From that day on, whenever their schedules allowed, they made time for each other. Sometimes it was dinner. Sometimes it was coffee. Sometimes it was only 15 minutes together. But somehow, those few minutes always became the best part of their day. As they stood to leave, Adrian looked at her and smiled. "You know, finding my wallet was the luckiest accident of my life." Maren smiled back. "I was just doing the right thing." "Maybe," Adrian replied softly, "but it was the best thing that ever happened to me." Over the next few weeks, Adrian and Maren continued seeing each other whenever their schedules allowed. Some evenings they had dinner. Other days, they simply walked through the city, stopped at a bookstore, or shared coffee before Maren's bakery shift. The more time Adrian spent with her, the more he realized how peaceful life felt around her. One Saturday afternoon, as they left a bookstore together, they noticed an elderly man struggling to carry two heavy grocery bags. Without thinking twice, Maren hurried over. "Let me help you." She carried the bags all the way to the man's apartment building a few blocks away. The grateful man smiled. "Young lady, thank you. There aren't many people like you anymore." Maren simply smiled back. "My mother always said kindness costs nothing." As they walked away, Adrian looked at her quietly. "What?" she asked, noticing him smiling. "I've been in rooms filled with successful people," he said softly, "but I've never met anyone with a heart like yours." Maren laughed gently. "I was just helping." "I know. And that's exactly why you're different." That evening, after dropping Maren home, Adrian sat alone in his car for several minutes. For the first time in years, he wasn't thinking about his company. He wasn't thinking about his next meeting. He was thinking about Maren. A smile spread across his face. At that moment, he knew. He didn't just want her in his life. He wanted to spend the rest of his life with her. The following week, Adrian couldn't stop thinking about the day Maren had walked into his office carrying his wallet. He had signed million-dollar contracts, opened new companies, received awards and recognition. Yet somehow, the memory he treasured most was a young woman quietly saying, "It belongs to you." One evening, after everyone had gone home, Adrian remained alone in his office. He opened the top drawer of his desk and carefully took out the same black leather wallet. Running his fingers over it, he smiled to himself. "It all started because of you." He opened it and looked at the family photograph tucked inside. For a moment, he remembered how close he had come to losing the wallet that morning. Then he thought about something else. If Maren had made a different choice, if she had walked away, they would never have met. He closed the wallet gently and leaned back in his chair. At that moment, one thought became perfectly clear. He didn't want another dinner. He didn't want another date. He wanted forever. The next morning, Adrian visited a small jewelry store before heading to work. After looking through several rings, one caught his attention immediately. It was elegant, simple, and timeless. It reminded him of Maren, not because it was expensive, but because it was beautiful without trying to be. "This one," he said with a smile. Later that evening, Adrian called Maren. "Are you free tomorrow afternoon?" "I think so," she replied. "Why?" "I'd like you to stop by my office," she laughed. "Should I be worried?" He smiled. "Not at all. I just have something I'd like to show you." "All right," she said. "I'll be there." The next afternoon, Adrian arrived at his office earlier than usual. He placed the old leather wallet in the center of his desk. This time, it held no cash, no credit cards, only a small velvet ring box and a folded handwritten note. He looked at the wallet one last time, took a deep breath, and smiled. In just a few minutes, the wallet that had brought them together would begin the next chapter of their lives. The next afternoon, Maren arrived at Whitfield Capital right on time. The receptionist greeted her with a warm smile. "Mr. Whitfield is expecting you." A few moments later, she stepped into Adrian's office. He was standing by the window, but turned and smiled the moment he saw her. "You made it." "I said I would." As she walked closer to his desk, her eyes landed on something familiar. She laughed. "Please don't tell me you lost your wallet again." Adrian chuckled. "No. This time, I want you to open it." Curious, Maren picked up the black leather wallet. It felt exactly the same as the day she had found it. She slowly opened it. The cash was gone. The credit cards were gone. Instead, there was a small velvet ring box. Beneath it lay a folded, handwritten note. With slightly trembling hands, she opened the note and read it. "The best thing I ever found wasn't inside this wallet. It was the woman who returned it. Thank you for reminding me that honesty, kindness, and love still exist. Maren Cole." Will you marry me? Before she could look up, Adrian had already walked around the desk. When she raised her eyes, he was on one knee, holding the ring. Maren, the day you returned my wallet, I thought I'd found something I had lost. He smiled softly, but I was wrong. That day, I found the person I'd been missing all my life. Will you marry me? Tears filled Maren's eyes as she nodded. Yes. Yes, Adrian. I will. Adrian slipped the ring onto her finger. She laughed through her tears. I can't believe this all started with a lost wallet. He smiled. And I'm very glad you decided to pick it up. He stood, gently wrapped his arms around her, and held her close. Outside the office windows, the city carried on as usual. Inside, two lives had just become one. For a few moments, neither of them said a word. Maren simply looked at the ring on her finger, then back at Adrian. You really surprised me, she whispered. Adrian smiled. I've been trying to plan this for days. She laughed softly. And here I was, thinking you'd lost your wallet again. I'm hoping I never lose it again. They both laughed. That evening, Adrian took Maren to a quiet rooftop restaurant overlooking the city. There were no reporters, no photographers, just the two of them celebrating the beginning of a new chapter. I have one question, Maren said with a smile. What is it? When did you know? Adrian didn't hesitate. The morning I walked into your office? She shook her head, laughing. No, that's when I walked into your office. He grinned. I knew the day I watched you helping people at the bakery. You were kind when no one expected anything from you. That's when I realized I didn't just want to spend time with you. I wanted to spend my life with you. Maren reached across the table and gently held his hand. I'm glad I returned your wallet. So am I, Adrian replied. A few weeks later, they began planning a small wedding with their closest family and friends. Maren wanted something simple. Adrian agreed immediately. It doesn't have to be grand, he told her. As long as you're there, it'll be perfect. As they left the restaurant that night, Maren slipped her hand into Adrian's. Neither of them noticed the city lights anymore. They were too busy looking forward to the life they were about to build together. 3 months later, the little church was filled with smiles, laughter, and happy tears. Friends and family gathered to celebrate Adrian and Maren as they promised to spend the rest of their lives together. As Maren walked down the aisle, Adrian couldn't take his eyes off her. She smiled the same gentle smile that had caught his heart the day she walked into his office, carrying a lost wallet. After exchanging their vows and rings, they were pronounced husband and wife. The room erupted in applause. Later that evening, after the celebration had ended, the newlyweds returned to their new home. Adrian walked into his study and opened a small wooden memory box. Inside were a few treasured keepsakes from different moments in his life. He carefully placed the old black leather wallet inside. Maren walked over and smiled. You really kept it all this time? Adrian nodded. I always will. She looked at him curiously. Why? He gently closed the box. Because every time I see this wallet, I'm reminded that one honest decision changed my entire life. Maren slipped her hand into his and rested her head on his shoulder. I almost walked past it that morning. Adrian smiled. I'm grateful you didn't. He kissed her forehead, and together they walked onto the balcony overlooking the city lights. They stood there quietly, hand in hand, thankful that one simple act of kindness had led them to each other. Sometimes love doesn't begin with grand gestures. Sometimes it begins with one simple choice to do the right thing. Before we go, we'd love to hear from you. If you were in Marin's shoes with only $6 in your pocket, but you found a wallet filled with thousands of dollars, would you have returned it? Be honest. We'd love to read your answer in the comments. And if this love story warmed your heart, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who believes kindness still exists. Also, if you can't get enough of heartfelt billionaire romance stories with beautiful happy endings, we've put together a special 5 Billionaire Love Stories ebook featuring 5 unforgettable romances you'll absolutely enjoy. You can find the link in the description below. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next beautiful love story.